We find ourselves as white in a rich position where black's king is borderline exposed. His pieces are relatively trapped, and we know there is something here. Our tactical sense alarms are going off. We just need to calculate the right line, and we will have a crushing position. We just need to figure out how to do it without falling apart in the process, like we all do sometimes. I'll present you with some information to guide you through your calculation, then give you a chance to find the right move in the position. Let's start with some general observations. First, our eyes are drawn to black's pawn chain, which looks pretty strong, but is one sacrifice away from collapsing. Once gone, the black king will be exposed, and white has pieces to capitalize on that. We also need to be aware of our strong control of the d-file. The knight, though well defended, is pinned, and we have a few available checks at our disposal. Black's pieces are all fairly inactive, though he does have some scary pawn-pushing ideas that we need to be aware of. Okay, now that we have familiarized ourselves with the position, let's start considering a few moves. I'll propose a few candidate moves that we can consider. First, I instinctually like the idea of knight takes g5. This move comes with check, so black is forced to capture the knight with the pawn, else he will lose his light-squared bishop. This leaves the e5 pawn vulnerable to eventually playing something like knight takes with check. I will point out that you can't immediately take the pawn, because even though the knight is pinned, he can still recapture on e5. And, while you will win the queen, you have given away an equal amount of material. You will have to find some way to get rid of that knight. An alternative to this line would be bishop takes g5. Pawn recaptures, and our knight at some point comes in with check, similar to the other line. A final candidate move for you to consider is the check on d6, which takes a solid outpost and is well supported. Not take a moment to give this position your best shot using the link below. Pause the video and we'll meet you are finished. And now that you've done that, you know the answer to this problem is the move bishop takes pawn. This move takes a lot of calculation to arrive at, so let's break it down. Let's start with our first idea. The knight check here looks pretty. We take a beautiful outpost, but the problem is that black can simply take our knight and we are out of threats. This move was a bit of red herring and doesn't really lead to anything concrete. If we take back with the pawn, we close off the d-file, which was one of our strengths in this position. Additionally, the pawn will be very difficult to defend, so we can take with the rook. But it doesn't do much here that it wasn't doing on d1. The rook is a long-range piece. All we did was trade our strong knight for black's trapped dark-squared bishop to satisfy our one-move threat itch. So now we consider the knight sacrifice on g5. Black is forced to take back, and this leaves the e-pawn vulnerable, because the knight is pinned. But wait a minute. If black takes with the knight, we get his queen, but we sacrifice two knights and a rook, and now material is equal, and our strongest pieces have been traded off, and our attack dissipated. Let's remove the defender of the pawn, so we can take it freely. Our queen is looking to come into the attack, and black is in trouble if he isn't careful, with ideas like bishop takes g5, followed by an attack from the queen. But he has one move that puts him just out of reach. Yes, we can get some material back with the knight fork. But then we are still down. We need something big here to continue our attack. You may notice that if we could get our rook to d1, we could pin the bishop, and might be able to overwhelm it, since it will be very difficult to defend. In order to do this, we have to sacrifice more material, but we will win some back. Black can defend again, but then our queen comes in, and the position is very interesting, though surprisingly equal. Black can just barely hold on. The main problem with this line was we had to sacrifice too many pieces. We sacrificed a knight to open up the pawn chain and a bishop to open up the rook. But we could have consolidated and achieved both with a single sacrifice. Back to the correct variation, where we sacrificed the bishop, which has the advantage of opening a rook to join the attack, which will be essential in this line. We proceed with a variation very similar to what we just calculated. Now we have the immediate threat of rook d1. And black is going to have a tough time defending, because now we still have our knight on e4, covering the f6 square, preventing the knight from defending. So black has to concede the bishop. If he tries to defend the bishop with the king, he falls to the knight check, opening up the diagonal for the queen. Checkmate. So we finally swing our rook over with a final devastating blow. And black's best move is to give the queen up for the rook. White goes up a pawn worth of material, but his pieces are extremely active, and the black king is so weak that the engine gives an evaluation of plus 4.3 here, which is completely winning. Hopefully you found this position interesting. I encourage you to review the lines and practice visualizing different variations from the starting position. Thanks for watching.